Welcome to my designer class. My name is Mercy and I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. In today's tutorial I'm going to be featuring Healing Hugs and this beautiful card. My inspiration came from Mixed Up Craft. It's a UK card maker and I thought her card was just beautiful with this easy fold type style, and I wanted to adapt it to Healing Hugs. And so when you open this card, you will open it up, and here you can just write a little note, and I will show how I made this card. All right, so I'll set this aside right now, and first I'll bring in my paper trimmer. And this is really important to have a good paper trimmer because I'm going to be using it for scoring purposes. So this is a retired Rich Raspberry Lemonade DSP, and I'm going to use that today for the card. Okay, so I'm just setting this in and at 2 3/4, and I'm lining the corner down here up. So I will just quickly show you how I did this. All right, I think I got that pretty well. It's important to get the corner really well when you're making this card. Oh, silly me, I forgot to take this off. All right, okay, here we go. And I also like starting at the thicker end. And you don't have to press too hard because this is designer paper, so it doesn't need a lot. Now, for this part, I found it was easier to turn it and do it from this side. But it can be a little bit confusing where to line it up. So that's why I have this white paper here. So again, I line up the corner, close it up, make sure that the point up here is correct, and then just score it. So that's pretty much how I scored it. I'm going to set my paper trimmer aside, and then I'm going to burnish the score lines. Okay, so for this, I'll just start on this side. Again, the main thing here is you want to get this corner really well, and I kind of didn't get it quite perfect, but you can kind of fix it when you're burnishing it. So just pay attention that you get that part really well. I'll show right here. Okay, so it doesn't really matter which side you start with, but you don't want to try to have it all the way lined up. You actually do want this opening here, and I usually thought it looked a little more pleasing to have it the left side overlapping. So I will start with the next part, which is the stamping of the beautiful roses. And I use the Stamparatus for this part. I'll set this aside. Oh, and I did come up with a template here. I don't know if this would be helpful. And it just helped me keep on track with the turning the paper and so on. So that's just an FYI in case you're interested in how I did that. And then I also, for that inside note card, I had, I started with a prototype and then I fine-tuned it, and this will eventually, I'll use this to copy onto white cardstock. Okay, so here we're going to start with the rose. So I will, I started with the 5.5 by 5.5 Whisper white cardstock. It really helps to actually have a square, but it doesn't have to be a perfect square. And I made a little L here on here, so I didn't have to get up by the hinges. Everyone's complaining about this with the hinges, not getting a good image stamped. And what you'll see is this is pretty straightforward. I just set it up into that corner, and I created this using the Stampin' Trimmer. All right, so I'm going to get out this, and I'm going to support under my Stamparatus I don't know if you can see this, but if you lay it flat with a CD case or your stamp case under it, it really helps. This is an old style felt stamp pad, so obviously I'm going to do it a couple times to get a good image, and you can see that why I'm definitely using the Stamparatus. But my problem with the other foam type stamp pads, I was getting like an image that didn't have any definition. I did a tutorial on that and how I actually feel like the foam is a better choice. Okay, so after I'm satisfied with stamping, usually about 2 or 3 times, I will just turn it. And this creates like a turntable type thing with the Stamparatus. And you can do a lot very quickly by doing it this way. You can make fast work out of stamping. So I love the Stamparatus. I'm excited that it's finally available to everyone. Okay, so you get the idea. Now I will continue to turn here and stamp till I get my images. I will need 3 roses. So the last one I can make another rose, or I could actually just use that area for the leaves. So I will just leave it like, well, I think I won a 3rd time on that one. I didn't quite get it well enough. So you can see how this really makes a big difference with stamping. Okay, I'm going to set this one aside, and I will now move on to the leaves. So with this one, I use the 3 by 3 inch Whisper cardstock, and I will once again put it up into this corner. And since this comes with 2, I'm just going to simply take this one off, and I've already mounted my leaf on the other one, so the other hinged, so it should be ready to go for me. Okay, so again, I did prefer the felt, so I'm using Mossy Meadows, which is a new color, and I'm going to go ahead stamp on here, and these spots actually work extremely well when using the Stamparatus. I do recommend them anyway. So again, with this one, I feel like 1 is probably enough, but it is handy having it on the Stamparatus because you know exactly how to fit in on a small piece of cardstock. So I would suggest doing that. Cutting out a square. Okay, so you get the idea. I will just continue to turn and stamp. But in the case of trying to save some time, I'm going to set this aside, and I will now show how I assembled the beautiful card. So, okay, so I'm bringing back my sample, and in order to get this to fit in an envelope, you definitely need the envelope handy. This is a standard envelope that you typically mail business letters or whatnot, and it will fit in, but you have to be careful and you have to really gauge it. So that said, I will start the process. I will bring back the designer series paper, and I'm just going to quickly erase the few marks I made. You don't even have to do these marks, but if you're not confident, go ahead, do the marks. It'll make it a little simpler. All right, so with this, I have already the little triangle cut out. And again, this one, the triangle, when you're making it, you can cut a piece of cardstock, and if it's like, I think it's 4 3/4 this length, you can kind of line it up and keep flipping it, drawing a pencil, and then cutting off your pencil mark when you cut it with your paper cutter trimmer. So that's just a thought. I never actually adhered this, but I do like having it in here just so I know how to build everything. All right, I'm gonna close my stamp pad because that bugs me that I don't have that closed, and I hope I don't have any of the pink ink on me. Okay, so I went ahead and cut out these rose images that I had used with the Stamparatus. So I will bring those in along with the leaves that I cut out. And one important thing is to actually use your snail adhesive when doing this. I don't recommend a different type, and here's why. It's very difficult to get everything lined up perfectly without overlapping, and sometimes you just want to adjust it. So to do that, you obviously want to have some wiggle room. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting these down, and I'm going to just pretty much copy my other one, hopefully, because I like that, and I don't, oh, this one I put the tape on the wrong part, so I'll just grab this one. It won't matter with the other one. Because I am actually trying not to tape onto the white part. Now this one I put pretty low, and I put it about right here. So, and I started with the roses, and then I slipped the leaves underneath them. So this one I kind of have up here more, it looks like. So I'll go ahead and set that down and start adding some of the leaves. I'm going to put a little bit at the corner here, and I will start with this one. And again, I have to be able to close this, and as you can see, that will not close, so I need to adjust it until it closes the flap. And of course, now the leaf is pretty much lost, so I want to kind of shift this a little bit. So again, this is why the snail is really useful to use, and I highly recommend using snail for this card. Okay, so I'm just going to once again slip this under here, and I don't really want any white space or space with the designer paper showing right in here or here. So the white space is fine here, but anyhow, you get the idea. So again, I will keep applying these petals, and I added about 5, it looks like. So I have one over here, and then a few towards the top. So I will quickly, once again, add a few and slip that in here. So next I'm going to go ahead and put this in and see where I want my final leaf. Okay, just going to take these backings off real quick. I have dimensionals on the final one, and I think I like that pretty well, but I want to make sure when I close this, it's not going to be touching, and it's definitely not. And at the same time, I don't want the tip back here showing. So I have to have it high enough. I want it high enough there. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I will add the final leaf, and then we can wrap this up. Okay, well, yeah, that's pretty good, I guess. Okay, so you get the idea how that works. And keep in mind, this is supposed to be free. See that leaf? I kind of got that a little wrong. So you can write your note and then carefully slip it back up in here. I think that works out pretty well. Now, the final 2 steps would be to add the Get Well Soon and the ribbon, which I have cut, and I measured it, and it was about, I think, 16 inches, the ribbon length. So just something to keep in mind. It definitely doesn't have to be exact, and it also depends on how much of a tail you want. So I'm going to use some of my tear tape here, and it overlaps. I mean, it's not completely here, so I want to make sure I don't add it to that part, which is no problem, of course. So I will go ahead and add my Get Well Soon. I think this would be a perfect card if you wanted to send someone a Get Well card. It's a bouquet of flowers, which is really fitting. And who would not like this? So one thing I do want to make sure is that I made this to fit. And it looks like it fits, yes, but it's of course a little tight, but that's okay. I don't mind tight. So what I did here was just simply tie a bow, and then I went from behind and I added some glue dots so that this doesn't keep slipping, because this is meant to be opened and shut. So you definitely want to make sure you leave enough tails for the ribbon. Now I'm not going to mess with this too much, this ribbon, for the sake of time, but you get the kind of the idea. This is a little loose, but what's really important again is to go flip this card around, and what you really need is to have one of these little pokey tools, also known as a paper piercer. And you want to get your glue, a couple glue dots. So what I'm going to do is get oh, it's on this side. I don't even know how this works. Some days, okay. And the key is to try to get it without making a mess of it, but sometimes that's harder, easier said than done. So you just kind of slip it under there and put it there. You won't really notice it, but it is important so it doesn't like completely fall off, and the person getting the card would have no idea how to get it back on. It will help with that process to avoid that. Okay, so you get the idea. You just put it behind the ribbon, your mini glue dots, and then you will have it. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. I enjoyed making this and hope you give it a try. If you have any questions, please post below, and if you'd like to order any products, email me at mewants3.com. And thanks for watching, and happy stamping.